All right, so this is going to be a review of Knock at the Cabin. It's the newest M. Night movie. M. Night Shyamalan, he's hit or miss. Most of the time missed, at least for me. But he puts out movies that I at least find interesting, right? Like Old was interesting. It wasn't good, but it was interesting. And I hated Glass. Anyway, I'll say how I feel about this one in a second, though. So, if you've seen the trailer, you get an idea of pretty much the movie. I think the trailer maybe shows a bit too much. But there's this family, and the one of the dads is Eric, played by Jonathan Groff. The other dad is Andrew, played by Ben Aldridge, and they have an adoptive daughter, Wen, played by Kristen Cui. I think that's how you say it. And they're taking a vacation at this cabin in the woods, and they're approached by four people, led by Leonard, played by Dave Bautista. And they approach the cabin. They seem polite at first, but they won't let them in. So then they break in, and they tie them up and things like that. After they get into a fight, or whatever, they end up getting tied up. But they're not there to hurt them or kill them or steal from them. They're there to tell them that they've been chosen to make a choice, and the choice is they have to willingly kill one of the people in their family, or the apocalypse will happen. And there's certain apocalyptic things happening. They keep showing the news where certain things are going on, tsunamis and things. And so there's a question of whether these people are just crazy, this is a cult or whatever's going on, or if this is actually real and this is something the family actually has to deal with. So, like I said, M. Night Shyamalan is hit or miss. Most of the time, miss for me. But I have to be honest, I have to be fair. This movie is actually really good. The premise was already interesting to me. Having to make that choice, obviously the moral thing would be to sacrifice yourself or a family member, whoever, for the human race, obviously. But if you're actually put in that situation, especially if you don't know if the situation is actually real, that could be a really hard choice to make. I don't think anybody could really definitively say, if they're not in that situation, what they would do. So it's automatically interesting. And there's always the question of whether this is real or not. They show certain news stories of different things happening in the world, but part of it is like pre-recorded and things like that. So I think it was Andrew is the main one that's like, this is fake. Like, this isn't making any sense. You guys targeted us. It's partially, they think that it's also because of bigotry, because they're a gay couple with an adopted kid, things like that. So it keeps itself interesting, and for the most part, it flows really well. It's shot well, certain angles and things. A lot of close-up shots whenever a character is saying something important, things like that. It's a good-looking movie. It's mostly self-contained in that cabin. Still a good-looking movie though. Nice score too. Uh, the performances are all good, other than one. We'll talk about that. But especially Dave Bautista. He's so good. I mean, it feels like it's his movie, really. He's carrying it. He's the one that's mostly talking to the family, explaining things to them, showing them the news and things like that. Whereas everybody else, they definitely feel like they're mostly following behind him. He's the, even though you could tell he's reluctant, and he doesn't want to do this, and he's polite dude, seemed like a good guy. He's the one I think that's the most convinced, and the one with the most conviction about what's going on and carrying it out and things like that. Also, Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge, I think they did good too. I got a nice feel for their relationship and their characters. I wish there was a bit more that you see from the family, but you definitely get the idea of their dynamic, where one of them is more more outspoken, quick to stand up for himself and his family, and one of them is not so much, a little bit more of the thoughtful one, right? So obviously Andrew would be the ones saying, "Hey, this is fake" and all this other stuff, ready to go get his gun and all that. And the other dad is the one that's actually starting to be like, there might be something to this and things like that. So there's actually a conflict between them two at a certain point too, which I thought was really good. So they're also really good in the movie. For the most part, I liked most of it, right? Especially when we get to the climax, which was kind of beautiful in a way. So I I really like this movie. I thought it was legitimately really good. But it's M. Night Shyamalan, so of course I'm gonna have at least a few issues here. So the bad performance that I was talking about is M. Night Shyamalan. He's not in that much of this movie, right? There's been other movies where he's made himself a full character. He's gonna make the cookbook, write the cookbook that's gonna change the world or whatever, and Lady in the Water. And some other ones. He killed Mel Gibson's wife in Signs. Stuff like that, right? So some of them are he's a bigger role. Here he's a lot smaller, right? Maybe one of his smallest cameos, but he's still a bad actor. He's very awkward, very awkward. Even just in this moment, it came off more as embarrassing than anything else. M. Night, at least if you're gonna do these cameos, become at least a little bit of a better actor, or let them just be visual cameos where we just see you and go, hey, that's M. Night, and move on because he can't act. So that's one. Two, and this is probably my biggest issue, I'd say, is as with other movies M. Night's put out, the dialogue at certain points is bad, and bad enough to take me out of the scene. There's a lot of really good tension in this that I really felt had me at the edge of my seat to figure out what's really going on and if this actually is real or not, and kind of poking holes in the story the same way as the dads are and things like that. But there's certain lines of dialogue where that tension is just sucked out because it's so bad and awkward to where it feels like this isn't a real conversation happening between real human beings. And that's been a problem I've had in M. Night's movies, even his good ones, for forever, pretty much. So yeah, the dialogue. At one point, one of the dads, I think it was Andrew, he's like, "You piece of crap" or something like that. I was like, really? I mean, I get that, maybe he didn't want to cuss in front of his daughter, but really, crap, right? It's like, at points it just didn't work for me. And then probably my last thing is it gets a bit far fetched. It gets a little Christian doomer at certain points. If you've seen the movie Left Behind or something like that, there's a point, I think this is also in the trailer, where planes are just falling from the sky. And it's like, okay, tsunamis, whatever, that's plausible. Planes just drop from the sky, especially when you don't really explain how or why. Like, in like Left Behind or something, the Rapture's taking the pilot or something like that, right? And that's why they're falling. But here, it doesn't really say. They're just planes falling. And also, the effects aren't that great when it comes to whether it be the tsunami or the planes, whatever. So that was also an issue. I thought, this is a bit much. That being said, though, I thought it was really good. I gotta be honest. Even if I have my issues with M. Night Shyamalan, I gotta be honest. This is one of his best movies, I think. All right? And, even though I had my little issues with the dialogue and some of it dragging a bit and things like that, could have focused on more development, I still got a feel for the characters, really enjoyed their performances, uh, really found the whole story, really, the premise of the whole thing and the way that it plays out, extremely interesting and entertaining. And by the end of it, even though I feel like the end maybe could have done a little bit more with the very end, by the end, I was satisfied with it, very much so. So I'm going to give this just awesome. Just because the gripes that I did have, I won't go highest. It could have easily gotten my highest, though, to be honest, with some tweaking of like the dialogue and stuff. But yeah, no, this is really good. Definitely the best movie I've seen so far this year, and good on M. Night, right? I'm not rooting for him to fail, right? If he puts out a good movie, hey, I'm all for it. If he puts out a bad movie, I'm all for that too, because at least it's something to talk about. But anyway, yeah, that's M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin, and subscribe, and we're done.